Before we begin, the name is placed on the top right side of the screen. Tiana, just 4 years old, finds herself at the center of a ridiculous dilemma, one that is, quite frankly, the biggest of her short life. A man calls her over, urging her to hurry, but the one whose lap she currently occupies scoffs at the impatience, reminding everyone that Tiana's designated lap time is 10 minutes. The red-haired man, clearly irritated, argues that such a rule is up to the child herself. Who put this guy in charge anyway? And so the life and death debate rages on. Who gets the privilege of having Tiana sit on their lap? The red-haired man remains confident that Tiana prefers him. The black-haired man rolls his eyes, questioning whether his rival's eyesight is failing. Maybe he should get that checked. Meanwhile, Tiana stands between them, watching their argument escalate. Could they not hear themselves? They were fighting over something so unbelievably childish. With a deep sigh, she demands to know why they're acting so immature. Before things can get further out of hand, a white-haired man steps in, his presence alone serving as a reminder of an agreement they had all made: no fighting in front of Tiana. But did that stop them? Not even close. The absurdity of the situation is undeniable. Just how many handsome men were gathered here, bickering like children? Kyrios, ever the observer, comments that all of this is happening because Siegfried refuses to share Tiana. Siegfried, the only duke and swordsman of the empire, immediately counters, insisting that the real problem is Kyrios breaking his promise. Then there's Kizer, the high priest blessed with the power of light. He doesn't seem particularly invested in the argument, but makes it clear that if these two were going to keep at it, they could take their fight elsewhere. After all, time's up, and he happily declares that it's now his turn to have Tiana on his lap. At this point, it's beyond ridiculous. Tiana can feel her sanity slipping away. These men, these supposedly great and revered figures, were completely hopeless. They weren't just any ordinary people either. They were heroes, legends who had once saved the human realm by defeating the 5 demon lords of another world. And yet, here they were, locked in a petty battle over something as trivial as her lap preference, with not a single inch of compromise in sight. Why? Because they all wanted to be her dad. This was never part of Tiana's plan. Somewhere along the way, things had taken a very, very wrong turn. Kyrios, still determined, suggests that they simply ask Tiana whom she prefers to sit with. This catches her completely off guard. Why were they putting this question on her? She isn't even a fan of sitting in laps to begin with. She knows that no matter whom she chooses, the others will feel left out. Change of subject is clearly necessary. So with the most innocent face she can muster, she pleads with them not to fight. She tells them sweetly and sincerely that she doesn't like it when they argue. It works. They all flinch, immediately looking guilty. One by one, they begin apologizing, admitting that it was their fault for fighting like this. Tiana is impressed that her trick actually worked. But there's no time to feel relief, because if any of these so-called heroes ever discovered her true identity, everything would be over. She wasn't just any child. She was the greatest enemy of the human realm, the ultimate villain, the Demon King. One day she had simply woken up and found herself reincarnated as the final boss of a novel. Born half demon and half human, her life had been nothing but misery from the start. Sold and passed around in the slave market, she had been chosen by the demon god's prophecy and appointed as the Demon King. But being both a child and half-blood, many high-ranking demons had been displeased. Before she could even awaken her true powers, she had been imprisoned in the Demon King's castle, drained of her strength, and used as a mere puppet for the ruling demons. Eventually, the prince, the hero of the novel, had stormed the castle, executed those who had exploited her, and rescued her. For years she had lived in despair. Then, at last, she had awakened as the true Demon King. But in the end, it hadn't mattered. She had been slain by the hero, a tragic villain's fate, and now in the present she was once again a prisoner. At only 4 years old, she lived as a slave in the Demon King's castle. Sighing, she wonders how she had ended up in the most miserable role possible. Ever since realizing that she had been reincarnated, she had done everything she could to escape. But it had been futile. She was nothing more than a puppet. She scrubs the storage room floor, though no matter how much she cleans, it never seems to get any better. She has to finish before lunchtime. Something is thrown at her. The demons are here. They sneer at her, calling her trash. One of them scoffs, questioning why anyone had ever thought she was fit to be the Demon King. Tiana trembles. It's better to act terrified and endure it. But the demon isn't satisfied. He steps closer, glaring. She isn't going to answer? Does she not understand her place? She is nothing but a puppet. Tiana wants nothing more than to smack them, but she knows better. These are full-fledged demons, and she is just a 4-year-old child who hasn't even awakened yet. They take her silence as obedience, ordering her to clean the place thoroughly before they leave. Before stepping out, they remind her that she is only alive because of them. With a fake, sweet voice, she cheerfully replies, "Of course. Have a safe trip." The moment they are gone, her face darkens with anger. They never shut up. If she ever awakens, they won't even have the chance to talk. She punches the trash bag, letting out her frustration. But then, a realization dawns upon her. Even if she does awaken as the Demon King, then what? In the novel, the story follows the classic cliché: a prince becomes a hero, slays the Demon King, prevents the world's destruction, and ensures a happy ending for everyone. But now that she has actually been reborn as the villain, the reality is far more horrifying than she had ever imagined. Despite her immense power, the original Tiana had spent her entire life being abused and exploited. Perhaps she had clung to the hope that one day happiness would be hers, but in the end she had been slain. Her last hope had been shattered. Tiana wonders what the real Tiana must have thought in that final moment. She can't even remember the last time she had a real conversation with someone. At this rate, she knows she might end up. A loud, deafening noise erupts from outside. Startled, she looks out the window. Demons are running, fleeing for their lives. This isn't a petty scuffle between the ruling demons. No, someone has invaded the Demon King's castle, and Tiana can't help but wonder, who in the world could it possibly be? Siegfried thinks to himself that they have spent way more time than expected taking the castle. Only one remains among the 5 demons, but their stamina is at its limit. If they don't finish this soon, they won't be making it out alive. Caesar, sensing the urgency, tells Siegfried that now is the time. He will cover him from the rear, ensuring he gets the chance to deliver the final blow. There's no time to hesitate. This is their last chance, even if it costs them their lives. Siegfried grips his sword tightly, takes a deep breath, and with one last burst of strength, slashes the last demon, Rock. Victory at last, however, as the dust settles, Siegfried barely has time to celebrate. Caesar and Kyrios are already on the ground, completely wiped out, and Siegfried himself is struggling to stay on his feet. He huffs, trying to catch his breath. But deep down, he knows the truth. None of them are making it back alive. His vision blurs, and the last thing he sees before everything fades to black is the ruined battlefield around him. Then someone calls out to him, again and again and again. After what feels like an eternity, Siegfried's eyes snap open. Confused, he blinks a few times before sitting up. Where is this? What happened? Standing beside him is a young girl who looks absolutely delighted to see him awake. This is Tiana. She claps her hands together and exclaims how relieved she is that he finally woke up. Then, without missing a beat, she asks if he's feeling okay. A few hours earlier, Tiana had stepped out after the battle had quieted down, and what a sight it was. Blood everywhere, weapons scattered across the ground, and not a single spot left intact. She had gazed upon the carnage, only to notice something shocking. The 5 demons were dead. That couldn't be right. For a long time, those demons had been draining her powers, keeping her imprisoned here. But now, they were nothing more than lifeless corpses, which meant she was free. Little bro couldn't believe it. For so long, she had thought she would be trapped here forever. That escape was impossible. And yet, here she was, standing outside, breathing freely. The realization was so overwhelming that she could barely process it. But then, another thought struck her. If the 5 demons were dead, that meant someone had invaded the castle. Who? Her gaze shifted toward Siegfried and his companions, unconscious yet victorious. Could it be them? This timeline was different from the one she knew. The original prince, the so-called hero, was still just a child. That meant these people were the previous generation of heroes. Wait, that also meant Tiana suddenly remembered something from the original novel. There had been a brief mention of a group of heroes attempting to raid the demon castle long ago. They had all died, cursed, and forgotten. It wasn't even a major plot point, just a passing remark. And now that she thought about it, those heroes had assumed the 5 demons were the true rulers of the castle. But in reality, it had never been them. It had been her. Surprise? Tiana, the poor, miserable, long-suffering prisoner of the demon castle, was actually the true Demon King all along. What an unfortunate little twist. If everything followed the original story, these heroes were meant to die here. Well, that was awkward. Her eyes wandered across the battlefield again. landing on something peculiar, a crystal. A magic stone, infused with demonic energy. She picked it up and inspected it, and just like that, everything clicked. The 5 demons had been channeling her power through these stones. That was how the Demon King's curse worked. It wasn't some ancient malevolent magic. It was her. Oh, wonderful. So she was the unintentional cause of their deaths. How embarrassing. The worst part? She was supposed to go berserk at some point in the original story, losing control completely due to the years of abuse she had suffered. That was what led to the second invasion of the human world a decade later. And well, considering the fact that the prince was still out there somewhere, that was not a future she particularly wanted. Her original plan had been simple: escape the castle as soon as possible. But now that she was looking at her tiny, fragile child body, she realized something important. There was no way she was making it far. If she tried to escape now, she'd either be recaptured or killed. Neither of those sounded appealing. But that was the original story, wasn't it? And this time, she wasn't just some mindless puppet. She was an adult woman with actual survival instincts. She just needed to think. If the berserk transformation happened because of all the suffering she went through, then all she had to do was not suffer. Easy, actually. Now that she thought about it, if she played her cards right, she might even be able to awaken her true powers without losing control. Oh, that would be fun. But first, priorities. The 3 unconscious heroes were still here, and they were her best ticket out of this place. Back to the present. Hours of nursing them back to health had finally paid off. Siegfried was awake and looked relatively fine, though. Why did his eyes look so terrifying? Before she could say anything, Siegfried suddenly grabbed her by the collar. Rude, his grip was firm, and his voice was even firmer. He demanded to know who she was. She had been so focused on the whole, not dying thing that she forgot about that tiny little problem. Tiana, trembling slightly, because let's be honest, she was still a small child, quickly responded that her name was Tiana, but he could call her Titty too. Yes? Friendly nickname? Good idea. Siegfried was not amused. That was not what he had asked. He didn't want her name. He wanted to know her identity. She stammered out that she was just a simple human, a slave to the demons. A poor, unfortunate soul. No. He wasn't buying it, because even though she said she was human, he could feel the demonic energy swirling around her. Siegfried made it clear, if she didn't answer properly, he would have no choice but to assume she was an enemy and eliminate her. Well, that escalated quickly. Tiana hesitated, knowing she was backed into a corner. Then, with a nervous gulp, he muttered under his breath, could it be that she was the hidden Demon King? Tears were welling up in her eyes as she confessed, with all the dramatic weight of a tragic heroine, that she was half human and half demon. Now Siegfried was a reasonable man, or at least he liked to think so. But this was pushing it. Humans and demons were as different as night and day, oil and water, pineapple and pizza, which he was sure was some sort of crime. Demons were notorious for being hostile to every other species, and yet here was this tiny child claiming to be a mix of the two. If what she was saying was true, then it wasn't entirely surprising that she had been living as a slave. After all, someone powerful enough to truly be a demon king might not care about the background of a mere servant. Still, Siegfried could sense some human presence within her. Appearance-wise, she looked much more like a human than a demon, and her demonic energy was faint. He couldn't help but wonder, were demons really so arrogant that they abandoned their children just for not being pure-blooded? It was too suspicious to believe blindly, so he asked her about her age. Tiana, in response, casually tells him she is 4. That number alone nearly wrecks Siegfried's emotional stability. 4? Shouldn't a child that young be safe in their parents' arms? He points out that while she might be a slave, there has never been a recorded case of a half-human, half-demon person existing. Tiana, completely unfazed, explains that she knows this because her mother told her. She also adds that her mother warned her never to reveal this secret to anyone. Siegfried is momentarily caught off guard. He had been so focused on Tiana's circumstances that he forgot she must have parents too. He almost brings up her mother but stops himself. If her parents were alive, she wouldn't have ended up in this state. That much was obvious. Tiana then asks, rather bluntly, if she can leave now that she has told him everything. Siegfried realizes that he has been holding her this whole time, so he awkwardly apologizes and puts her back down. Still, he has more questions. Why was she treating them, Tiana, as if it were the most natural thing in the world? Explains that her mother told her to. According to her, if someone was sick, she should help them so they wouldn't be in pain. That was simply the right thing to do. Siegfried is left speechless. Something so obvious, yet as a so-called hero, he had forgotten it entirely. But this was the Demon King's castle, the heart of enemy territory. He had been so focused on survival that he ended up threatening a small, fragile child. How pathetic. He promises to repay her soon. Tiana, ever the business-minded child, bows slightly, clearly expecting some form of payment. Now that the tension has lifted, Siegfried can see the situation more clearly. For a moment, he had really thought they were all going to die, but somehow they had survived. The demonic energy that had been eating away at his body had vanished. It had to be because all 5 demon kings, the root of the energy, had been slain. Before entering the castle, they had wiped out all the demons. For now they were safe. Siegfried sighs in relief. Tiana, on the other hand, exits the room and closes the door behind her. Goosebumps spread across her skin as she processes what just happened. She had almost been caught. Siegfried had actually sensed her demonic energy. Her heart had nearly dropped. Thankfully, she had an answer prepared and used her completely non-existent mother as an excuse. Fortunately, Siegfried seemed to believe it. She glances at her bed, only to get annoyed. Thinking back, she went through absolute hell just to drag him and the others to the infirmary. Yet instead of thanking her, he had grabbed her by the collar. She fumes over it, until she suddenly starts coughing. The side effects of demonic energy imbalance begin to show. Demons typically had their own innate demonic energy, but if they either lacked it or absorbed too much, they suffered side effects like coughing up blood or collapsing. In the past, when the 5 demon kings had drained her energy, she would occasionally cough up blood. This time, however, it was because she had absorbed an excessive amount while reclaiming the demonic energy from previous generation heroes. Most demons could naturally regulate their demonic energy, but as a half-human, half-demon, it was much harder for her to control. If she messed up, it could even consume her life force. The only reason she remained calm was because, in the original novel, she knew that she would awaken as the Demon King at the age of 25. Since demons could inherit and control demonic energy, at the very least she wasn't going to die from failing to control it now. But the time she had left until her eventual rise was 21 years. No matter what, she had to figure out how to control her power before then. The next morning, the heroines had already taken care of the demon who used to torment her. Finally, she could take a proper look around the grand castle. Her jaw nearly hit the floor. The laundry room was luxurious. She had never even heard of such a place existing in the castle. Since it hadn't been affected by the battle, it was still perfectly intact. But now that she thought about it, she got even angrier. These people had been living comfortably, eating well, and enjoying themselves while she was shoved into some filthy storage room. Not knowing what the future held, she decided to take things with her, just in case. She packed almost everything she could possibly need. Now she just needed to grab those towels. The only problem? They were on the cupboard. And she was tiny. Even standing on her tiptoes was useless. She needed to find something to stand on. Just as she was struggling, a voice suddenly spoke from behind. Did she need help? Tiana nearly jumps out of her skin, eyes wide in shock. Siegfried had somehow snuck up on her. Why was he wandering around so silently? He, of course, mocks her reaction, saying that anyone would think she had just seen a ghost. She turns to properly look at him and immediately notices something strange. When she had treated him, there had been a sword next to him. Among the previous heroes, the only one who had used a sword was Siegfried, the swordmaster. He had already woken up and was walking around like this. She had heard that he was the strongest man, but still, this was ridiculous. What kind of absurd recovery speed was this? Then, her brain finally registers something else that she didn't notice while treating him. Jet black hair. Golden irises. He is ridiculously handsome. She barely snaps out of her thoughts when he asks if she wants him to put the towel in her basket. She quickly confirms, thanking him. He then glances at the basket and questions what she's planning to do with all that stuff. She explains that she's setting aside anything useful. He raises an eyebrow. Was she really planning to carry all of that herself? She nods. He watches her attempt to drag the basket in size. At this rate, she wouldn't be able to move it in the next 10 years. She hesitates, worried about making a patient work. Siegfried immediately scoffs, claiming he isn't that injured. What kind of weakling does she take him for? Tiana frowns. Big words coming from someone who would have been dead if she hadn't removed the demonic energy from him. Siegfried immediately notices her expression change and asks if he did something. She waves him off, saying it's nothing. Girl, that was not a small frown. Before their bickering can continue, someone calls out to Siegfried, asking where he has been. Tiana turns to look. When did this guy wake up? The man has fiery red hair, tied back, with deep green eyes. He then narrows his gaze at her, and with complete and utter disdain, asks who the goldfish poop-looking child is. Tiana stares. Oh no, this man is giving off major red flags. Someone needs to make sure he never gets custody of her in the future. Tiana is absolutely poised. How dare he talk about someone who have saved his life? Bro is officially on the red list now, but alas, she cannot afford to get angry at this moment, not for the sake of her grand plan. Seems like she must have mastered people-pleasing in her past life. With a bright, eager smile, Tiana greets him, happily announcing that she has brought medicine and bandages, just in case he is injured. If he needs anything, she's got it. However, there is absolutely no realism in her optimism. She might as well be talking to a brick wall. Could he please say something? Anything at all? Meanwhile, Siegfried turns to Kyrios, trying to be the voice of reason. He acknowledges that Kyrios has been on edge about a lot of things lately, but still, Tiana is the one who treated their wounds. Kyrios, completely unimpressed, scoffs at this, pointing out that everyone knows Siegfried got swept up by her just because she treated him a little bit. How is he supposed to trust some random child they found in a demon castle? What if she has some ulterior motives? He demands to know what Siegfried plans to do about that. Internally, Tiana is screaming. Did she just get exposed? Was this the biggest setback in her carefully laid out guardian-raising plan? Siegfried, completely unfazed, assures her that Kyrios is just a twisted guy and not to worry about his nonsense. But then, for just a moment, Siegfried wonders, was it his imagination, or did she actually look guilty for a second there? Tiana knows now is not the time for this existential crisis. Right now, her precious guardian should not be arguing with another potential guardian. So, in an attempt to de-escalate the situation, she loudly declares that it's fine. After all, there are plenty of people who dislike her. Kyrios' expression suddenly shifts, though he quickly turns his face away to hide it. Siegfried, sensing something, decides to poke at him. If Kyrios feels bad, why doesn't he just say it? But Kyrios immediately snaps back, who said he was sorry. Siegfried, already exhausted, sighs and apologizes on his behalf, because, let's be real, Kyrios is never going to grow up. Kyrios is furious. How dare Siegfried badmouth him right in front of him? Tiana, playing the role of the ever-understanding saint, assures them both that it's okay. She gets it. She knows she's been annoying to them. Now both Siegfried and Kyrios look increasingly worried. To move the conversation along, Kyrios suggests that they should go check on Caesar, since he still hasn't woken up yet. Tiana, obviously, wants to go with them, but Kyrios, being Kyrios, immediately counters. What in the world could a child possibly do to help? When they open the infirmary door, it becomes clear that the one who took the most damage in the battle was, in fact, Caesar. Makes sense, considering he's the one most vulnerable to demonic energy. With shimmering silver hair, long eyelashes, and skin as white as freshly fallen snow, he is the epitome of a holy figure. As the high priest, he wields divine power, which is the direct opposite of demonic energy. Because of this, he is way more susceptible to it than the others. Maybe that's why, even though the others have woken up, he still hasn't. Tiana asks Siegfried to put her basket down. Siegfried, unimpressed, points out that she doesn't need to yank it. He was going to put it down anyway. She quickly gets her medical box, knowing she needs to wake Caesar up soon if she wants to stick to her carefully constructed guardian-raising plan. Even though she already removed the demonic energy, the wounds are still tainted. They won't be able to heal with just divine power. He needs actual medicine. Ultimately, his body has to recover naturally first. With this in mind, she plans to disinfect the wound and change the bandage. Siegfried, looking a little concerned, asks if she's really planning to treat Caesar. He nervously adds that he could do it himself, but Tiana strongly disagrees. She's the one who has been treating him so far, so she will continue to do it. Besides, she's desperately trying to earn guardian points here. Internally, she begs them to please just let her do her thing. Then she opens the bottle of medicine, and it spills. All of them scream. Kyrios immediately recognizes that this is definitely going to sting. Tiana realizes with growing horror that she has messed up big time. Even Caesar, unconscious Caesar, seems to be in pain now. The medicine spilled so suddenly that she barely had time to react. Quickly, she starts wiping it off and rewrapping the bandage. But Bro definitely has a skill issue. Still, she convinces herself that it's only because she's in a hurry. Kyrios, watching her butcher the bandaging job, sighs and tells her to move aside. He'll do it. Then suddenly, Caesar's eyes open. Kyrios immediately shouts in surprise. Caesar has woken up. Tiana, on the other hand, is panicking. This was not part of the plan. She only meant to treat him and then disappear now. The high priest, who is basically obsessed with the power of light, is staring right at her, and in the original novel, he despises demons the most out of all the heroes. This is bad. If he finds out about her true identity, it will be an absolute disaster. But then, instead of immediately condemning her existence, Caesar just gazes at her with dazed, half-lidded eyes. And then he asks, with complete sincerity, if she is an angel sent by the god of light. Tiana stares at him in absolute disbelief. All three of them look thoroughly cringed out, making Caesar wonder what exactly he's witnessing. When he gets up, his eyes land on a young girl, and for a moment he's confused. Who is this? The girl bows politely and introduces herself as Tiana. Meanwhile, Kyrios, standing nearby, is not having it. Is Caesar really going to ignore his battle-worn comrades just to fawn over some random kid he just met? Seriously? Caesar, in his usual cool manner, doesn't even hesitate before answering. Why on earth would he care about a bunch of grimy, grown men? Kyrios is immediately irritated. He knows full well that Caesar is only saying that because Tiana is cute. Annoyed, he throws some sarcasm into the mix, questioning what kind of priest gets swayed by appearances. Caesar, unfazed as always, smoothly counters that there is no rule stating priests can't appreciate cuteness. After all of the world's adorable creatures deserve to be loved. Tiny animals, friendly little critters, and of course, angelic children like Tiana. He even goes as far as saying that when faced with such a charming and lovable child, isn't it only natural to mistake her for an actual angel? Meanwhile, Tiana is sweating internally. She had been worried that Caesar, being who he is, might sense the demonic energy within her and immediately take a disliking to her. But thankfully, it seems like he has a soft spot for kids and animals. She breathes a silent sigh of relief. Then Caesar turns to her with interest and asks if she was the one who treated him. Tiana confirms it, though she frets that her messy bandaging might ruin his impression of her. But Caesar simply comments that she must have worked really hard to take care of all of them, and he thanks her sincerely. Tiana tries to brush it off, saying there's no need for that, but internally, she's thrilled. The plan to win over the heroes isn't a complete failure yet. Caesar then introduces himself to her, flashing that charming, princely smile of his, and insists that she call him by his name. He's so ridiculously kind that Tiana can't help but wonder, are they absolutely sure he doesn't have wings hidden somewhere on his back? Compared to the prickly Kyrios and the stoic Siegfried, this man is a total angel. She eagerly tells him that he can call her Tiana too. Caesar, pleased with the exchange, is already looking forward to getting along with her. Later, after Caesar wakes up, Tiana figures he must be starving, so she heads to the kitchen. But of course, Kyrios follows her, as suspicious as ever. Come to think of it, it's just like what happened in the laundry room. He always seems to have his eye on her. Once inside, Kyrios takes a look around and immediately realizes something. This kitchen is ridiculously majestic. Even the cupboards are enchanted with preservation magic. Everything in here screams luxury. Except, of course, for the tiny space where Tiana actually lives. He's confused. Why in the world is a demon kitchen this extravagant? Ignoring his confusion, Tiana focuses on finding ingredients. For a patient's meal, she thinks soup would be the best option. Kyrios, being Kyrios, immediately mocks her. A patient's meal? Seriously? What is this, a hospital? Tiana patiently explains that easy digestion helps with recovery. Kyrios scoffs. Since when did patient food matter? Caesar could probably chew through iron and be fine. Tiana firmly reminds him that Caesar is still injured. Kyrios rolls his eyes. As long as Caesar is conscious, he'll be fine. There's no need for a kid like her to worry. But then, halfway through his own argument, he suddenly stops and grumbles about why he's even explaining all of this to her. Tiana, completely done with him at this point, just notes to herself that he got all worked up talking, and now he's mad at himself. Kyrios, still stubborn, tells her that if she's gathered all the ingredients, she should just go sit somewhere. What's a child even doing in the kitchen in the first place? Tiana insists she can handle it, but Kyrios shuts that down immediately. Does she seriously think it's safe for a 4-year-old to be handling knives and fire? If Caesar finds out, he'll probably kill him, so it's better for everyone if she just goes and sits down. Little Tiana, now officially demoted from chef to bystander, quietly sits on the floor and thanks the heavens that Kyrios is so strict. Kyrios, meanwhile, starts up the magic-powered stove and glances at her. She's an odd one. He was so cold and dismissive to her, yet she didn't even flinch. A normal 4-year-old would probably be terrified in this situation. That thought makes him uneasy. After a moment, he finally speaks up again. It's a weird question, but why doesn't she cry? Tiana blinks, caught off guard. What does he mean? Kyrios clarifies. She's just a kid. Isn't she scared of this whole situation? Any normal child would be bawling their eyes out by now. So why is she acting so mature? Tiana hesitates, but eventually answers. She is scared, of course, but she knows that if she makes the wrong move around these adults, something even scarier might happen. Kyrios scoffs. She really does say the wildest things. Tiana, sensing an opportunity, decides to play the sympathy card. Does he? Not like her. Kyrios immediately tries to deny it, but before he can get the words out, she sighs dramatically. It's okay. After all, she has demonic energy inside her. She may look human, but because of that energy, even other demons hate her. It's fine, really. Kyrios, for the first time, hesitates. Wait, was she actually bullied by demons because of her mixed nature? A single 4-year-old with no one to rely on? He's going to have to ask Siegfried about this later. Annoyed at the sudden wave of complicated emotions, Kyrios grumbles for her to stop talking. She's being noisy. Tiana wonders if she failed her sympathy play, but never mind that, something smells really good. She yells that she told him Caesar needs to eat something light. Kyrios fires back that it's fine, Caesar isn't going to die from this. But suddenly, Tiana starts coughing. She had thought it was over, but no, her demonic energy is acting up again. And there's no way she can let them see this. Kyrios notices. What's wrong? Tiana quickly lies, saying her throat is just a little itchy. And then she bolts out of the room. She needs to get away fast. This is bad. Looking at herself in the mirror, she realizes that she may have overdone it. At times like these, it's best to rest. Deciding on her excuse, she heads back to the heroes. Caesar, upon seeing her, immediately brightens up. He had been waiting for her. Would she like to share a meal with him? Tiana, feigning a yawn, says she'd actually like to go to sleep. Caesar is surprised. Already? She nods, rubbing her eyes. She's sleepy and would like to rest, alone. Caesar, ever the kind one, doesn't push. He simply hands her some food, saying that while sleep is important, skipping meals isn't good either. She should eat something before resting. Tiana happily assures him that she will. As she leaves, Kyrios finally sees his chance. He turns to Siegfried. All right, now spill. What exactly is Tiana? Siegfried explains that, according to Tiana, she is half human and half demon, having been enslaved by demons. Kyrios, naturally, finds this absurd. After all, there has never been a single half-blood in history. Siegfried himself had trouble believing it at first. The faint yet unfamiliar scent of demonic energy lingering around her, combined with the fact that she was the only one who hadn't fled from that cursed place, made him suspicious. At first, he even wondered if she might be the hidden demon king. But there was something off. She also had the distinct aura of a human. And if he had noticed it, then surely Kyrios must have sensed it too. Before Kyrios can launch into another dramatic protest, Caesar casually raises his hand. He too had felt it. That faint trace of demonic energy surrounding Tiana was impossible to miss. Of course, Kyrios doesn't take this information with grace. Instead, he scoffs, throwing Caesar a mocking look. Was he really convinced? Or was he just pretending to believe her because she was cute? Caesar, ever the shameless one, does not deny it. Yes, Tiana is absolutely adorable. However, he insists, his judgment isn't based solely on that. If what she claims is true, then her life must have been anything but easy. And as much as Kyrios hates to admit it, even he can tell just by looking at her, she is far from healthy. Her brittle hair, her fragile body, the tattered clothes hanging off her like an afterthought. This is not what a beloved child of either race would wear. The only thing about her that remains untouched by time is her jewel-like eyes, gleaming with intelligence, and an alarming amount of mischief.